So let's go back to the 1940s, 1943, 1944. So the Allies are winning the war. There's a commitment clearly to full employment after the war, primarily because if you don't do it, the Soviets will. And there was an economics that went for it. They rewrote the software, and that's John Maynard Keynes. And you probably heard the line at some point that in the long run we're all dead. And this is the full quote, right? It's worth reading, because in a nutshell it tells you everything about why this was new code, why this is a new software for running the economy. In the long run is a misleading guide to current affairs. In the long run we're all dead. Economists set themselves too easy, too useless a task. If in tempestuous seasons they can only tell us when the storm is long past that the ocean will be flat. So he cared about the short run. And why? Because this is how he thought about deep recessions. Deep recessions are called depressions for a reason, because in a sense you're kind of depressed, or your investment expectations are depressed. If you've experienced very good times for 2 years and then you have 2 bad days, you don't rewrite the script. But if you've had 2 good years and then you have a bad year, you begin to think differently about the possibilities for the future. And if you basically drag that out, that short term starts to become longer. Everybody's investment expectations get depressed. So if you've been in a long recession for 5 years, you're a capitalist, let's open a factory. No, why not? Because nobody's buying anything. But if you think that way, and you think that way, and you think that way, you all sit on your money rather than invest in it, what happens? You bring about the very collapse in investment that you're trying to avoid. At base, it's primarily a psychological trick. That was the essence of what Keynes was trying to do. So the whole thing about spending, government, all the rest of it, it's turning the expectations in the short run in a different direction so that investment goes up. That's it. It's totally different. Now, there's a guy called Kalecki, or Koletsky. Most of you have never heard of him. He wrote this thing. This thing is a 7-page critique of his 383-page book, essentially. And he says, there's a big problem with this. I'm a huge fan, don't get me wrong. Full employment, all that sort of stuff, fantastic, particularly after the Great Depression. The commies are a real threat. We want to save capitalism. Even I do, and I'm a lefty. Like, great, knock yourself out, it's good, right? But there's a problem. And what's the problem? Well, if you run full employment as a policy goal forever, you're going to have a problem. Oh, how? Everybody will be happy, people will be consuming, they'll have high wages, it'll be nirvana. What are you talking about? How do you pay for high wages? Employers pay them. Right, so how do they get the money to do it? Well, they make more sales. They do it out of profits. And if you run permanently full employment, then basically the average wage over time is going to go up. And if it's running full employment, it's hard to get labour because you basically have everybody employed. Then the reservation wage at the bottom and the median wage is all going to move up over time. Now, unless profits are constantly moving ahead, the only way firms can get away with this is to do what? Jack up prices. But if you're jacking up prices in order to pay wages, what's happening? What did we call that in the 70s? He predicted it in 1943. And he also said something fascinating. He said, and once you do this, capital, investment, they no longer have the whip hand. They can't discipline labour because they'll strike, they'll do sit-downs. And what else happened in the 1970s? Huge industrial unrest. So this guy basically predicts the bug in the software, right? Or rather, it's a feature rather than a bug, to use that term, right? So by the 1970s, this is Britain in 1979, no famous winter of discontent. This is Australia. You don't think of Australia as being affected by much, but the unemployment on the one side, inflation on the other, that's Gough Whitlam holding onto the raft of the economy being buffeted by the waves. And this is Kalecki's problem. Labour can move costlessly from job to job and can strike at will. Business can only restore profits by raising prices. That eats the wages, provokes more strikes. The result is inflation and a collapse in investment because you know what? You're pissed with the situation. You're the investor class. You're losing money. Inflation's eating at profits. Labour's eating at profits. You can't make a buck. What are you going to do? This is what else Kalecki predicted. You're going to fund a market-friendly revolution. You're going to change the way that people think about the economy. You're going to appeal to the self-interest of consumers and individuals rather than as workers and members of unions. You're going to discipline organised labour. You're going to do the PATCO strike in 1982 and break organised labour in the United States. You're going to globalise supply chains. Hey, try striking now, because if you do, I'm off. I'll go first to Texas and then I'll go to China. So your ability to demand a wage increase just goes to zero. And at that point in time, that wonderful stagnation in wages for 60% of the economy started. Funny that, isn't it? You deregulate finance to increase capital mobility so that you can move your money around, but labour stays in the one place. You hand policy over to technocrats who are charged with one goal and only one goal: fight inflation, even if it's not there. And give them medals when they do. And then globalize production. Because when you do that, you're creating supply chains with incredibly thin profit margins for everybody in the supply chain, very cheap labor, massive returns back to the parent company. Why is Apple so damn profitable? That's why.